What's up everyone, Darcblade here with another guide for Monster Hunter Rise. In this video we're going to be demonstrating a pre-Sunbreak build for the Switch Axe. Now a pre-Sunbreak build is basically an endgame base Monster Hunter Rise build that we can use and take into the start of Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak to give us the best possible chance at taking down the early game monsters. Obviously, once you progress through Sunbreak, you will eventually get armor and weapons that surpass the build shown in this little video here, but nonetheless I wanted to give you an idea of the build I would use when starting out Sunbreak. Now before I get into this, if you like the builds that I produce on the channel, please think about subscribing and giving a thumbs up on the video. So when it comes to the Switch Axe has a lot of options available to it in Monster Hunter Rise, in all honesty. This is because it makes use of a lot of unique, or shall we say niche, skills. Rapid Morph, Power Prolonger, Evade Extender, it makes use of a lot of skills that could be considered quality of life skills. And I'm going to try to make use of them in this build here. So this is a universal build, but it does lean heavily on quality of life skills more than others. So for this build you'll need the Almudron Helm S, Gyrotodes Mel, Valstrax Bracers, Anjanath Coil S, and the Hunter's Greaves S. For the Petalace, this is down to personal preference, and then for your Talisman, of course no one is going to have the exact same talismans, but I would recommend getting something with Divine Blessing on, or failing that you could use a talisman that is heavy on the skills that are supplemented with the decorations. Now when it comes to the weaponry you have a lot of options, to be honest. I'm going for the Knight's Crescent, which is the Nagakuga Switch Axe, but the Tigris Switch Axe as well as the Diablos Switch Axe are ones I would recommend. I went for the Nagakuga one as it's a universal Switch Axe that has poison files, high affinity, white sharpness, and a nice tier 2 dual socket. As for the Rampage skill, I would go for the attack boost level 3. So when it comes to the decorations you have a lot to play around with, and remember that some of these decorations and the skills associated with them could be used in your talisman slot depending on what you have available to you. If that is the case, use decorations that give you that Divine Blessing skill. Anyway, for me though, I've gone for Jumping Jewels for a point in Evade Extender, a Quick Switch Jewel to max out Rapid Morph, Critical Jewels for Crit Boost, Venom Jewels for the Poison Attack skill, which will increase the poison rating of our files, Tenderizer Jewels to max out Weakness Exploit, Steadfast Jewels to max out Stun Resistance, a Brace Jewel to give us a point in Flinch Free, useful for when playing in multiplayer, and then an Enhancer Jewel to max out Power Prolonger. So if you've done what I've done here, you have a build with 234 attack with no element, you have 40% base affinity, which can be 90% when you take into account weakness exploit, you have a defense of 493, that is slightly strong against dragon and water, but unfortunately weak to the other elements. And with the switch skills, these are down to personal preference. Now, when it comes to the skills, first of all you have attack boost at level 4. Attack boost is a skill that increases the raw attack of a build, and at level 4 or above, it gives us a bonus to this raw attack. You'll then have Crit Boost at level 3, increasing the damage of our critical attacks. This increase in damage though is only applied to the raw portion of an attack, but as this build is all about raw attack, Crit Boost works well. You have Weakness Exploit at level 3. Weakness Exploit is a skill that increases our affinity whenever we're attacking weak points. Weakness Exploit at level 3 can potentially give us 50% extra affinity. You'll then have Poison Attack at level 3, increasing the build-up of the poison element. This is applied to the files we're using on this Switch Axe. Of course, if you were using a different Switch Axe, you would replace the Venom Jewels and thus the Poison Attack with something else. You'll then have Power Prolonger at level 3, increasing how long our Switch Axe will stay charged up. This is a quality of life skill that removes one of the more annoying parts of the Switch Axe. You'll then have Divine Blessing at level 3, our main defensive skill, that gives us a chance at taking reduced damage should we take a hit from a monster. You'll then have Stun Resistance at level 3, another quality of life skill that negates the stun effect on our hunter. You'll then have Rapid Morph at level 3, a wonderful skill for the Switch Axe that increases how quickly we swap between sword and axe mode, and on top of that, combos that utilize the moves that damage a monster while switching between the two modes, the damage of those hits will be increased. You'll then have Evade Extender at level 2. To be honest, you can get away with Evade Extender at level 1 if you so wish, but at level 2, whenever you perform a hop or roll or dodge, the distance at which you evade will be extended. You'll then have Recovery Up at level 1, a byproduct of the talisman I'm using here, but increases how much we heal when using potions and such. You'll then have Flinch Free at level 1, negating minor knockback and preventing allies from knocking you back or knocking you out of your combos and such. And then finally you'll have Dragon Heart at level 1, another byproduct of the gloves we're using. This is a skill that kicks in whenever we have 50% health or lower, to which we'll contract Dragon Blight, negating an element if we had one, but in turn increases all our resistances by 30. So that is the pre-Sunbreak Switch Axe build I'd be using. Now one of the main reasons I've gone for these skills, namely Power Prolonger, Divine Blessing and Rapid Morph, is because, well, there are two reasons. I went for Power Prolonger for its quality of life. and the fact that I like to perform the zero-sum discharge whenever I get the chance, so keeping the switch axe powered up for as long as possible allows me to perform more of these. This in turn works with Divine Blessing, because unfortunately, especially against the Apex Emergency Apex monsters, often when you latch yourself to a monster, whilst yes you won't be knocked off, you will still take damage, and this is where Divine Blessing comes into play, as it gives us an increased chance at surviving those risky maneuvers. Failing that, if it's not safe to perform the zero-sum discharge attacks and latch onto a monster, I tend to default to the rapid morph combos, switching constantly between sword and axe mode. But every build out there has various pros and cons. No build is absolutely perfect. When it comes to this pre-Sunbreak switch axe build, its biggest pros include its quality of life skills from power prolonger, stun resistance, evade extender and more, making hunts feel easier than they maybe are. On top of that, this build has decent damage output, thanks to a decent attack boost rating, crit boost, weakness exploit, high affinity, poison attack and rapid morph. We should be able to deal decent damage with this build. And then finally is that this build can be pretty much used against any monster you come across, as it is an elementalist build and rarely is a monster completely immune to poison. I doubt any monsters that we fight at the start of Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak will be completely immune to poison, meaning that you can just use this build to take on the early master rank quests. But of course there are cons. The two biggest cons for this build is, unfortunately, this build is a little bit low when it comes to raw attack when compared to some of the other switch axes in the game, but this is negated slightly thanks to the white sharpness and high affinity. And the other con, which is more of a personal con for me, which is this build has no evade window. Evade window is a little bit of a crutch for me, especially when it comes to slow moving weapons like the switch axe, which would give us increased invincibility frames when we perform the little hops, allowing us to continue our combos. But regardless, for me personally this is a fun build to use, and I am confident that it is going to help players at the start of Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. So until next time, I've been Darcblade, bringing you a pre-Sunbreak build for the switch axe in Monster Hunter Rise. Hope you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching, subscribe and like for more.